I love books. I love bookstores, and all over the world when I have an hour available, I go to bookstores. And recently I had like something strange. I was in the bookstore and there was a table. A table with lots of books, but with something in common. And I'll show you a bit the way it was. It was like this. All books had the end of somewhere in the title. And I was a bit surprised, a bit puzzled, a bit intrigued, say, this is strange. And I called the manager and say, why did you do this? He told me there are successful books, we'd like to sell them. But do you realize they're all facing the past? We would like to have some books for the future. And I told him I'm only 66, maybe another 20 years to live. And I'd like to have books for the next 20 years. And said, well, we don't have them. And this is just to show this, the end of. It's so human to look backwards. I'd like to have this lecture the other way, to the future. Again, you remember we spoke about change during lecture number 1. It was more a technical way to look at change. We split the change of perception on one hand, a change of reality on the other hand. It was called the forgotten half of change, you remember? So this time we're going to focus on change again, but not that much on the form, but more on the content, what's really happening. And this anecdote of the bookstores is a funny way to enter the problem. That's the way we are. It's not too easy, too difficult to see what we are leaving. Of course, the way we paid, for example, cash is disappearing a little bit, the way we work, etc., etc. And it's not too difficult to write books about the end of. But what's going to happen? That's the major issue. How can we talk about the future? Which are the new boxes, the way I described in lecture number 6. So the way to do that probably is to analyze the deep nature of the human being. We don't like change. Nobody does. Nobody does. Even genius people resist to change. We talk about Edison, one of the greatest inventors all time. And he resists to the introduction of the alternative current. A genius resists to change. Not a surprise. It's not because you're a genius that you're not a human being. We're a bit the same. We don't like it. Another example I like is Charlie Chaplin, who's of course one of the genius of the movies, and he resisted to change as well. He made most of his films in silence. It was called a silent movie. And then in the 30s, it was like a new technology. Suddenly it was possible for an actor to talk and for the movie maker to record the voice. And Chaplin said, no, I don't want to enter this world. So Edison, Chaplin, we're all the same. And during this lecture, we will try to overcome this fear and to find a way to do it. The last example I'd like to talk about is Louis Braille. Louis Braille. He's famous for this reason. He introduced a system you can see on the picture, and suddenly blind people could somehow read. This story is incredible. Louis Braille was 10 years old. He had an accident. He was working for his father and he had an accident. Suddenly he became blind, but he was brilliant. And he decided to resist to this depression of the complete collapse. He said, no, I want to help blind people to overcome that problem. And he invented something called the Braille writing, the writing Braille. But what's interesting, the idea existed before, but it was not used for blind people. It was used for military. During the night, they couldn't read. Of course, there was no light, so they used this kind of system to read. He just transport this idea of military into the blind world. And what's interesting, he need money. He need money. And it's why he was helped by politicians who found the idea brilliant. And so they went to the parliament, like that's the usual way to do to get money. And there was, I don't know who asked money for Louis Braille. The budget was denied. Budget was denied, and the reason is incredible. Because, according to the deputies, this kind of writing is not possible for people who can't see. And indeed, like you and me, we cannot read Braille. So the budget was denied. And then in the second run, Lamartine, a French author and writer and famous people, went to the parliament and delivered a speech. And thanks to him, finally, a budget was dedicated to this blind writing idea.